Hey everyone, back with doing another quick video on a little retrofit or upgrade that I did to my RDF here. So again, if you guys know RDFs and you know some of the brands, this is an Aqua Red label, the basic 25 model. So they're kind of budget oriented, you know, they're basic entry-level models. You know, they'll still cost you about $3 grand, but they're built, you know, fairly cheaply compared to some of the more pricier units with the heavier duty components. So one of the downsides about these guys, you know, aside from a bunch of other factors, is these little float sensors that they come with. So they use these plastic float sensors that tend to go bad fairly quickly. So I've had, you know, this unit running for 3 years now, and it seems like these guys, I'm replacing them every 6 to 9 months. You know, they're hard to find and they get quite expensive. So I'm paying, you know, 50, 60 bucks a pop for these things, and they don't last very long. So, you know, I think, you know, there's a two-piece design, so, you know, I think water can get in through here because it can actually be unscrewed. And then also these seals and, you know, these the way these little heat sinks, I don't think they're doing a very good job of sealing the water, so they go bad. So what I ended up doing, let me get this thing open here, and you can tell my RDF is filthy. I haven't done any maintenance on it for a while. I got a bunch of sediment that settled over there. Got a little bit of water pushing past some of the seals there, so I got some work to do on this thing. Anyway, let's see if I can get a good visual on it. So that's what I did there. I actually retrofitted with these one-piece stainless steel float switches. So you see these on some of the newer models that are starting to come out, but I think they're a lot better because it's all one-piece design, so they're not cut in half. And I think there's better sealing. And this one's actually a little bit longer. So you can see the wiring is pretty much out of the water all of the time. So there is a bit of work that gets involved with actually having to set one of these up, but I will show you I was able to retrofit it correctly into this unit and everything's working fine. So see if I can get a better angle. So if I move the top switch here, lower that. So you got a cleaning cycle going. Alright, that worked. Stopped. Everything's good. And I will lower the lower one on the very bottom is the low water cutoff. So if I hold that down, it should shut off the entire system because it detects that the system is running out of water. So there you go. So everything's shut down because it thinks it's running out of water. I let it go. Everything restarts. It'll go through another cleaning cycle. And it should be back up and running. So the issue that I was having with these guys is that because of the water intrusion, this float, the top float, would go bad and it would just go on a forever cleaning cycle. So it would just clean, and it would never detect that the RDF was full of water again, and therefore would not shut off the motor or the jets, which is not ideal. So I was able to get it all retrofitted. Let me move over here to the controller real quick. So in the process of trying to figure anything out, I ended up having to cut off the plug. So normally these got a little plug on there. It looks like this type of plug here. So it'll just screw into this end, which goes into the control box. So because I was trying to get the wires color coded, to match the red, yellow, and black, couldn't figure it out. I was having issues, and then I ended up realizing that the colors do not match the way that the Aqua controller is set up. And therefore I just cut it off. It just made it easier to just splice it in. Again, if I ever have to change it again and it goes bad, just undo this tape and splice it back in. I don't think that's that big of an issue, but as I mentioned, there is some little bit of work you need to do with the wiring and also the orientation on the float switches. So I'm going to go back inside, and then I'll show you with the multimeter testing what you need to do and how to get one of these stainless steel float sleeves set up. But again, hopefully this will be a little bit more reliable and last a little bit longer than these cheap plastic float switches. And even if it doesn't, I'm able to get these on eBay for 15-20 bucks a pop versus $40 to $60, and having a hard time finding a supplier here in the US. But these I can get on eBay, Amazon, they're all over the place. So with that said, I've had a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but I have had to replace several components with this thing. This red label, if you remember, if you've seen them before, they come with a submersible UV light that goes into the drum. That whole unit burnt out, so they're very expensive to replace. So I just capped it off right there, took that out, did this float-in valve. The booster pump, that one also failed on me, and I think I did a video before, built it, actually retrofitted it with an external booster pump, which I have it sitting over there under that tarp. There should be a video back in my profile from about a year or two ago. And then I guess, let's see, the only thing that's really working at this point that hasn't failed is the motor and the gearbox. So that's still going. I have had to replace the control box and, you know, now the various float sensors. So it's a bit of a Frankenstein unit, but, you know, it still works great. Still does an excellent job of filtering the water. So once you do a little bit of tinkering with these units and you get them dialed in, you know, they really do a good job. So I'll go now and we'll show you what the process looks like to test the float switch to make sure you have it set up correctly for these guys. All right, here's a quick video to show the resistance on these little plastic float switches that come on the Aqua Red Label, RDF, and many of the other basic brands. So right now I have my multimeter set to ohms. I have it connected to the 2 pins here for the top float. And as you'll notice, the top float, when it's down, it's basically reading nothing, right? So no current or signal is flowing. These are normally open float switches, so which means normally open being when the float is moved up, watch what happens to the resistance. So you see there's current flowing there. This means when the RDF is full of water, it's a normally open current, so the current is flowing to the controller, and it's detecting that the RDF is full of water up here, and it doesn't need to do anything. When the water level drops over here, you'll see that the current or the signal pretty much goes to nothing, and that's what triggers the cleaning cycle. So I'll pause the video and I'll connect the lower sensor so you can see the same thing. Okay, just swap the pins around to the other position there. Again, same setting. At the bottom, open, so basically no current is flowing. When we move it up, when the RDF is full of water, that's when the current is flowing. So this is the low water cutoff switch. So when this one drops, the current stops. There's no more signal flowing to the controller, and this one shuts off the entire system. So again, this is to trigger the cleaning cycle. This is the low water cutoff. When they're both up, their current is flowing, and the controller is sensing the signal. When they both move down, the current stops, and that's when this triggers an action. Okay, and here is the stainless steel float sensors that you can find on eBay and various other sources to try and retrofit this into the RDF. So you'll notice here I'm actually having the bottom sensor hooked up, so there's the leads down here. You'll notice this one appears to work the same as the factory sensor, right? So we have it at the bottom, there's no current. Move it up, the current flows, right? So that's good. The other thing you need to watch out for here with these guys is this little indent here, because these guys are reversible. So you can set them up from a normally open to a normally closed. So with the RDF being full of water and this being up at the top, the current is flowing, that would be considered a normally open switch. However, the way that these guys come assembled from the factory when you buy them, they're actually inverted. So this one here is a normally open, and then this one is normally closed. So these are made to kind of detect the water level in between a certain range. And to get it to work for the RDF, you need to flip this one around, because you'll notice the dot is not pointing towards the bottom. It's actually pointing up at the top. Here, let me flip this around. There's a dot there. There it is. So this one's actually backwards. So what we need to do, actually I'll show you what the current does first. Okay, so now we hooked up the leads of the top float here. Didn't change the orientation, so the dot is still pointing up, which we know is backwards. So this one, you'll notice when it's up, it's actually off or no current. And if I move it down, you'll see that's when the current gets triggered, because this little float here is set up for a normally closed position. So if you set this up in the RDF without doing anything, it's not going to work correctly. So the controller is going to know that they're all connected because you wired them in. But when the water is up here, right, so see it's triggering nothing, and we know that the controller's behavior when it senses this signal is going to trigger a cleaning cycle. So this one here is the one that controls a cleaning cycle, but because it's up and there's no current, it's just going to go and go and go, and it's going to trigger a cleaning cycle that will never end, right? So what we need to do is flip this one around for it to work correctly, because this one's up, so the controller knows that the RDF has not ran out of water, so it's not going to shut the system down. This one is up, but it's reading the wrong current, so it's just going to go and clean forever. So I'm going to flip it around, and then we'll show you how that current looks like after it's set up correctly. Okay, went ahead and took the little drums apart. The float sensor is very easy to do. You just take out these clips with a pair of pliers, and was able to rotate this drum. So now you notice that the little indent dot is pointing down, which matches this guy, which is also pointing down. So now if we look at the multimeter, so This one's at the bottom, and there's no current. So we move it up. Now you got the current, and now it matches the factory plastic float sensor, which is that one. So the same orientation, same normally open float sensor operation, if you will. And the last trick about these is trying to figure out the right wiring sequence, because you can't always rely on the colors for them. So this one also has the red, black, and yellow wiring, but they're in a different configuration. So on the Aqua red label, the red is the common wire, and yellow and black are for the top and bottom sensors. For this one here, the black is actually the common wire, and then the red and the yellow are for the different sensors. So right now I have the top one hooked up, which is actually the yellow wire. So, and you can see I have the black as the common lead. So that's the other thing you got to watch out for when you're wiring these up. But aside from that, it's a pretty straightforward swap once you figure out the right wiring and then get these set up for the correct normally closed versus normally open operation.